Okay, continuing our lesson. Number 3. Our equation is 4 equals negative c over 3. So there's a couple things to notice here. There's a negative, and then it's divided by 3. So this one we have to figure out what to do. So I'm trying to get the c by itself. That's what I'm trying to get by itself. So since it says divided by 3, I'm going to multiply by 3 over 1. And the reason I write over 1 is because the 3 has to be on top of a fraction to get rid of what's on the bottom. I also want to multiply by that negative so that these can cancel out as well. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be multiplying by negative 3 over 1 and multiply over here by negative 3 over 1. So the negatives cancel, the 3's cancel, and I'm just left with c. And then negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Okay, now stop and think, what did I just do to both sides? I just multiplied both sides by the same thing, so I used the multiplication property of equality. So now I'm ready to write my solution in set notation. Now when you have negative 12 equals c, when you write that in set notation, the c needs to come first. And so you'll write it like that. Okay, this next one, we're going to pause the video and give you a minute, and I want you to try it. You're going to write what you're going to do, what's the justification, and write your answer in set notation. So I'll give you about a minute or two to do this. Okay, you should have had time to complete this. What you're going to do is you're trying to get y by itself, so you're going to subtract the 2. And so 2 minus 2, that's gone, and so I'm left with y. And then negative 5 minus 2, you lose 5, you lose 2. You've lost 7. What did you just do to both sides? You subtracted from both sides. Okay, now writing your answer in set notation, y, such that y is equal to negative 7. And that's all you have to do for that. So you need to get the justification, you need to be able to solve the simple equation, and then write it in set notation. Okay, we're going to do another one. This next one's going to look a little bit different. Okay, this is a literal equation like what we saw in the warm-up, but it's not just the adding or subtracting, but we have this formula for the area of a rectangle or a parallelogram, base times height, and the directions say we're going to solve that for h. So h is what I'm going to get by itself, so what do we have to get rid of? We have to get rid of b. So we look at that and we say, okay, well, b is being multiplied by h. So to get rid of it, I'm going to divide by b. Divide by b. What did I just do? I divided both sides by something. So the only thing left to do is write our answer. It's h equals a divided by b. Now we're not going to make you write that in set notation when you have a literal equation, so don't worry about that part of it. Okay, I'm going to have you guys try the next one on your own. So you're going to have to fill in the a part of it, and then you're going to solve it, and it says to solve for x, and then you justify it. Okay, so what you should have done is add b to both sides to get the x by itself. So we're going to add to both sides. So we're going to have x is equal to a plus b, and that's our answer. Okay, so I'm going to put the next two questions up there so that you can see what they are, and then we're going to give you about 5 minutes to work on them, and you're going to be justifying and solving. So here's number 7, write that down, because you'll need to write this part down. Y divided by 5 equals n. And then on number 8, the problem says r plus z equals w. So you'll have to write the w in there. So for both 7 and 8, you're going to solve for whatever variable it says. Give me the justification as well. So I'll give you about, 4 minutes or so. Okay, now some of you didn't need that long, not by a long shot, and some of you maybe just barely got finished. Either way, we're learning how to do this, so it doesn't matter if you're doing it fast or doing it slow, but we're going to try and keep together. So what you're going to do here, since we're solving for y, you have to get y by itself. So you look and say, well, this is being divided by 5, so the opposite of that is to multiply by 5, specifically 5 over 1, so those can cancel out. So you have to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to have y is equal to n times 5. We don't write it like that. That's just not something that's done. So the way that we write that, and you need to remember, is 5 and then the n. The reason, what did you do? You multiplied both sides by something. Okay, number 8, solving for z. So we're going to get z by itself. So I'm going to subtract the r. So I subtracted, so I'm going to write subtraction property of equality. And so Z is equal to W minus R. Okay, so number 9, solve the equation. This is just back to a regular equation. You don't have to justify this. Just solve it and write your answer in set notation. So what I mean is we're going to solve for V. So it's being multiplied by 3/5. So you might say, okay, well, I'm going to divide it by 3/5. Well, how many of you like to divide fractions? Usually that answer is really, really low in numbers. Not really anybody likes to divide fractions. So if you remember, when you divide fractions, if I was going to do this, you remember the way you do dividing fractions is you multiply by the reciprocal, and that's the same thing because it's an inverse operation and it's an inverse number. So you would cancel everything and you get 1. So multiplying is a lot easier than dividing. Most people think so. And so what we can do here is you can multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. Oops. Same thing on both sides. So it's going to cancel there and you'll have V equals, okay, here's where the fun times start. And so without a calculator, how do you do that? Well, 18 is 2 times 9. So here's 2 times 9 over 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So all I've got left is 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 5 is 30. And that's my answer. So I'm going to write that in set notation. So we're going to write V such that V equals 30. Okay, next one, number 10. Same thing, so I'm going to have you pause the video for a second, and I want you to try to do that yourself. Solve for Q. Okay, remember what I said about multiplying by the reciprocal. If I multiply by 3 over 1, that's so much easier than dividing by 1/3. Because do you really want to do 4 divided by 1/3? Because most people, if they just think about it that way, they're going to get it wrong. So -4 on this side times 3 over 1, it's -12. And so when people think 4 divided by 1/3, they think like, 4/3 or 1 1/3 or something. But it's actually -12 because if you take 4 whole pizzas and you divide them into thirds, you've got 12 pieces. So now we're going to write it in set notation, Q such that Q equals -12, and that's going to be in our braces. Okay, so in this video, one last video with the last few problems on it will be next.